Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the AUSIT national event introducing digital stamps and ID cards for NAATI-certified practitioners. My name is Apolli Zhang, and I'm the National PD Coordinator at AUSIT. I'd like to begin our session by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the various lands across the nation on which we're gathered today, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. I extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. And thank you everyone for joining us on a weekday evening. And we're very privileged to have invited Michael Nemarich from NAATI to facilitate our session for tonight. Michael is the Manager, National Operations at NAATI. He has worked with NAATI since 2018, overseeing the company's test delivery, IT, customer service, and state office network, and is also the Deputy CEO. Michael has worked for the past 17 years in social enterprise and not-for-profit management, primarily with First Nations Australians prior to joining NAATI. His time living in and working with Indigenous communities who were English second language users embedded his appreciation of the critical role interpreters and translators play in the connection of cultures, communities, and businesses to each other and to the outcomes they wish to achieve. Before I give the floor to Michael, just a little bit of housekeeping. As we've set this up as a Zoom webinar as opposed to a Zoom meeting to accommodate for a larger number of audience. All of your cameras and microphones are automatically turned off. So if you have any questions during Michael's presentation, please feel free to use the chat box. We'll have time afterwards to answer all your questions, whether they're about the digital stamps and ID cards or anything NAATI related. Our session is recorded and the recording will be available on AUSIT's website as well as NAATI's website. Please also make sure you use the same name that you registered for the event with to ensure your attendance is recorded. Now, without further ado, please take it away, Michael. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Apolli. Let me share my screen for the presentation. Really appreciate the opportunity to join you all tonight. And I think the presentation, when I ran through it before, only goes for about half an hour. So plenty of time for questions at the end, and happy to stay around as long as anyone wants for ID card related stuff or even general NAATI things if I can help. So very excited to talk about digital ID. It's been in the work for at least 18 months on our side. We've had a lot of feedback from practitioners and stakeholders about how it might work. So we haven't been able to accommodate everyone's ideas, but we think we've got a good balance. So as I start off, I'd just like to second Apolli's acknowledgement of country. We're on Ngunnawal country here, where I am in Canberra, but particularly the role that interpreters and translators also play in maintaining those First Nations languages. And the connection to culture. Without interpreters, people can't use their language day to day, and there's still well over 100 Indigenous languages spoken in this country. So we extend our respects to elders past and present and recognise the land we're on here in Canberra in Ngunnawal country and for people around Australia as well. So today I'll talk about the digital ID, a couple of the features of it. I'll show how multi-factor authentication is set up with a couple of small video tutorials. I think this webinar will, once it's recorded, we'll post onto the NAATI website as well, which will be a good reference guide. The download and use, the security features we've got on it, and then, as I said, plenty of time for questions afterwards as well. So straight up, introduction to digital ID. This is our digital stamp. Doesn't look that much different to the old stamp, and that's an intentional design feature. We wanted the acceptance of the stamp to be as close as possible to the physical stamp that we've been using for the best part of 45 years in some form or another. So when we had clients or government departments seeing the new stamp, we wanted to make sure that there was no instant sort of reaction of, oh, this can't be the right thing. So the obvious new part is QR code on the left-hand side. This, when scanned, will automatically go to something very similar to the Verify Practitioner part of our website, and it makes it a lot quicker for that stamp itself to be verified, but also the practitioner that's providing the translation. We have on the bottom of the QR code a physical web address of where that QR code links to. And the reason we've done that is because it's got many government departments, when we did the consultations, said that they didn't have the ability to use mobile phones to be able to check QR codes. So that physical address is in there so people can manually type it if they want, even though it's quite long. You can see the number that just popped up down the bottom. The number of possible combinations for that code is a number I can't even pronounce. There is a much higher chance of winning lotto about 15 times over than being able to guess what the QR code randomly generated is. The other parts of the stamp are roughly the same. We have the name, in this case, my name is test account, and the practitioner number, the direction that the translation is certified for. We've replaced the signature panel with digitally authenticated by NAATI, and one of the key features of having multi-factor authentication turned on is to allow us to be able to do that. Our stamp generated on replaces the old translation date, and then it's got the name of the credential as well. So when we designed the stamp, we wanted to be able to replace the signature, because the signature could, unless someone had it on file, couldn't be verified anyway. And we've also removed the expiry date from the physical stamp that is normally present, because we don't need it. So we know that caused a lot of angst for translators when their documents were often said, oh, the translation expires on a certain date, when we know that it doesn't. So by having a digital stamp, we can remove the expiry date of the practitioner, because the stamp can only be generated by an active practitioner and can always be checked by scanning the QR code. The other thing I would note is we have had feedback on the size of the text under the QR code, and that it is quite difficult to read. In version 2 of the stamp, which will be released in a couple of weeks, that is getting fixed. So we're improving the font, and it will go across the bottom of the stamp, so it's easier to read. So when we're looking at the differences between the physical stamp and the digital stamp, as I said, the design of the stamp was to be as similar as the physical stamp as possible to aid in acceptance. We've obviously got an instantaneous digital download. We know that's a big source of contention for people when they're getting recertified, waiting for the post to come, or at the moment for physical stamps, we batch everything that's been issued in 2 weeks, all the certifications that've been issued or recertifications. We send that to a supplier, they manufacture the stamps, and then they get posted. So it's a 2 to 4 week wait to receive those stamps at the moment. But we have seen stamps go missing, and that can impact the ability to work. So instant digital download, definitely an advantage for us in the introduction of this stamp. We know that a lot of the work in the translation world is digital. So the introduction of this stamp saves from having to print out an entire document, stamp every page, scan it back in, and then email it. We've really considered how we've developed the stamp. It's, again, not going to be perfect for every scenario, but we know that the original physical stamp, people were making digital copies of it already, because that's the easiest way to get a digital translation done. So hopefully with this in a .png file format, which we've made, it's got a transparent background on the right-hand side, but not the left. The left-hand side is needs to have a white background to be able to have the QR code scanned. But as a .png file, it should be compatible with most Word document programs like Microsoft Word, Google Docs, or Adobe PDF. We've tested it on all of those. The security features, which I've talked about, only downloaded if MFA is active. The stamps this is a critical one for us, can be disabled in the case of fraud or misuse. So NAATI's strong recommendation, we can't enforce it obviously, is that a stamp is downloaded every time that you do a translation, or every day a new translation is being done. And the benefit of that is that each time you generate a new stamp, it's unique. It's encrypted with that 32-bit encryption with a number of combinations that I can't pronounce. And the benefit is if you report to us that it's been stolen, and we've seen this certainly with physical stamps, where the physical stamp has been screenshotted off a legitimate translation and then used multiple times by fraudulent international migration agents, usually is where we see it. In the past, the only way for us to deal with the theft of a stamp or a credential, fraudulent use, was to cancel the entire practitioner's ID and set them up with a new one. With this digital stamp, we can disable individual stamps. So all your other work can be continue to exist and be fine, but we can disable that single day stamp to ensure that it doesn't get continually misused. And I'll show you in a couple of slides' time what that looks like when it's scanned. I talked about the stamp generated date, replacing the translation date that used to have to be physically filled in, and the two-step verified credential process for the old physical stamp required someone to look at the stamp, try and work out if the signature and the date were correct, and then manually enter the practitioner ID into the verification tool on our website. This is a much quicker process for people to just be able to scan it and get an instant result on their phone. So at the same time as we developed the digital stamp, we developed a digital ID card, largely because the technology was built in for the stamp. So we thought a really good opportunity for us to be able to offer digital ID for people that don't like carrying around cards. I certainly know that I don't carry a wallet anymore. And this is a way for you to be able to bring up your digital ID card on your phone. It looks very similar to the physical ID card that we supply. The benefit, obviously, like the digital stamp, is it's instantaneously available to you. The only thing we can't do at the moment with it, click back up at the page. The only thing we can't do with it at the moment is store it to your Google or Apple wallet. We have tried with both of those companies to allow it to happen, but because they consider it a form of identification, they won't allow us to store it to those. They believe that there will be a function for us in the coming months that will allow that to happen. So if I go on to the next slide. So as I said, one of the key things for us in allowing these digital IDs to be used is multi-factor authentication on accounts. There's plenty of news stories around at the moment about security of ID, and we would recommend all practitioners to set up multi-factor authentication on their myNAATI account, but it is not compulsory. We've only made it compulsory for people that want to use the digital ID products. If you want to continue using physical products and your myNAATI without MFA, that is certainly okay. So to set multi-factor authentication up, most people should have experience of multi-factor authentication, either via text messages or emails that get sent. We have set ours up to use an authenticator app. We recommend Microsoft Authenticator or Google Authenticator, largely because they're in widespread use across the country and the world, and they're really quite robust. But you can, if you use other authenticator apps, certainly use them. So step one is download it through your app store. And then when you're in your myNAATI page, go to My Account, multi-factor authentication, and set up MFA. Once you get to that step, you'll get this screen, which talks you through the steps of how to set it up. Usually there is a plus button in your authenticator app. You'll scan the QR code that's displayed here on the screen, or input the code. And then the authenticator app will give you a code to put into the myNAATI portal, and that will link the two things together. It's important to note that if you change your phone or you've got problems with multi-factor authentication, you can contact us at info@naati.com.au or give us a call, and we will be able to disable the multi-factor authentication after we verified you to allow you to set it up again. So we definitely know that's been a problem with people, particularly with Android phones who have upgraded to a new phone. Their multi-factor authentication stops working, so needs to be reset by us. Okay, I'll go through how to download the stamp or the digital ID. Play this little video. So this is how to access. So on your myNAATI screen, go to My Digital ID Card, and that will bring up the card, and you can see there's two screens, and you can click or swipe to get between the two different versions, the front or the credentials part. This has been tested on all major models of phones and operating systems. So the card should display okay on your smartphone screen. And as I said, by saving it as a screenshot, you can save it to your phone gallery and not have to log in every time, or you can continue, just bookmark this page. Is probably another option. Don't need to play that video again. Okay, digital stamp. This is how to access the digital stamp. As I said, these functions will only show up if you've got MFA turned on. So going into your myNAATI page, go to My Credentials. It will show all current credentials. Click on Digital Stamp, and you'll see the digital stamp will download into the folder that your browser has set up as the default area for downloads to go to. In my case, in my browser, and usually as a default with Windows operating systems at least, it will be a downloads folder. It will be called downloads. But by clicking on the folder next to the download, it will go straight to that location. This is a short video of Microsoft Word, so I'll give you a couple of examples of how to apply the digital stamp. As I said, every program will be slightly different, but the functions are usually the same. So we've got some instructions for Google Docs on our website. This is very specifically Microsoft Word. So by going to Insert and Pictures, and then saying Insert Picture from this device and selecting where it's from, as I said, in my case, the stamp gets saved to downloads. Now this is huge and impractical. So the way to work with it now is to go to Wrap Text and say in front of text, and that will allow you to move the stamp around the document without disrupting all the text and how that's formatted. And then resize the stamp to the size that you require. You can see the .png format with the transparency on the right-hand side, and you can see through it. And that's how you can apply to each document or each page. One of the features we would recommend is if you don't want the stamp to be screenshotted and easily used somewhere else, you can use that transparency function to sort of paste it slightly over the text. But in addition to that, you can resize it however you require, but we also would recommend that a 2 centimeter by 2 centimeter QR code is about the smallest that it can be before it starts being unreadable by a lot of smartphones. Talking through some of the security features. So when scanned, you can see this top screen is what happens when a valid stamp is scanned. And when an invalid stamp is scanned, the one that we've disabled, this note back to the person who scanned it says that you have active credentials, but the QR code itself has been deactivated, and to either contact you as the practitioner or us at NAATI, and we can give information on whether the stamp that's being used should have been disabled for the first part, and if it's been disabled, why it's been disabled, potentially pending privacy concerns. We've also had, I think worth pointing out, we do know that it is possible to copy the stamp and take it off a document, but it is still far more secure because of this ability to disable it and the ability to download a new one each day than the physical stamp ever was. So it's a definite improvement. We acknowledge that it's not perfect, but we looked at many options of how to make that perfect, but they always fell with privacy or cost concerns. So we looked at the option to have something like a NAATI platform that you could upload your translated documents to, and then clients could download it from. We looked at having additional information embedded into the stamp, like the client's name, the type of document, the word count, potentially linking that to to your logbook. But through all of our stakeholder engagement, it kept coming back to the point of, does NAATI really, should NAATI really have access to that information? What are the privacy concerns about storing it on different servers? And it really sort of fell apart when we really probed those. So the stamp that we've got now, the security features that it's got, really based on that consultation period with as many stakeholders and practitioners as we could. Although it's not directly linked to the digital ID, I think it's worth pointing out some of the things that NAATI is doing to protect privacy. We're certainly concerned about ensuring our systems are safe. There's been, as mentioned before, lots of talk in the media recently of problems with hacking. So NAATI as a company has signed up to the Australian Cybersecurity Centre's Essential 8 Maturity Level 3. For anyone that's interested in IT stuff, I recommend going to cyber.gov.au and looking at the specific features of that. But the short part of it is, we looked at a few different standards. We thought the ACSC standards really were designed for the Australian market and really came to a very high level of security. Essentials 8 Maturity Level 3 is the highest security level in that program. It goes from 0 to 3, so 4 different levels, and it's designed for very specific targeted hacking attacks. So not someone that's just accessing a known security flaw or someone trying to steal a password, not low-level attacks. It's designed for high-level attacks. So we finished implementation of that E8 Level 3 at the end of last year. We've also introduced multiple things to our customer management system, of which myNAATI is the practitioner-facing portal of it. And we delete now all identity documents and other sensitive documents. Usually there's a couple of different timeframes, but as soon as an application is finished or as soon as we don't need anything anymore, it is deleted. We don't hold on to things for no reason. Roughly within 6 months of, say, a recertification application being approved, everything attached to that recertification application, apart from the text descriptions of what the document was and maybe the word counts, gets deleted from our system. So if you've uploaded invoices in support of your word count, or you've uploaded a new identity document, all of that information is deleted from our system. So in the very unlikely chance that our systems do get breached, when they get in there, there will be nothing to see of note. We've also upgraded the control of all online directory listings, and I've got a couple of slides to show you these. So traditionally, the online directory listing was probably a little bit difficult to navigate, to know what you had displayed and when. From now, all new directory listings will be an opt-in process. So verify practitioner is always available. That's part of the credential system. But for our searchable directory for people that want to advertise their services, it is now an opt-in process for all new certifications going on. And I'll go to the next slide and show where to access those from. So in my credentials, and you would have seen this screen just before, there is a button now directly for online directory on and off. So you can display one or both in this case of your direct credentials, or neither. And then in my account, under my profile, This is a slightly better screen than it was before. You can see under address, you've got options of showing state only, state and suburb, or the full address, and then the options to be able to turn on or off your phone, email, and website details. So you can be on the online directory with no information except your name and credentials shown. You can be off it completely, or you can do a combination of all of those things that are on the screen. So that's it for me for the presentation, 27 minutes, so slightly less than I originally said.